The Orion Frontier Station had seen almost everything. It floated between three major star systems like a steel city suspended in endless darkness. Every hour, transports arrived carrying merchants, diplomats, soldiers, miners, refugees, and explorers from dozens of worlds. The station's security officers rarely looked up from their monitors anymore. After years of service, surprises no longer existed, until Gate 7 opened. The transport from the outer mining colonies docked without ceremony. Its engines cooled, the pressure doors unlocked, and passengers slowly stepped into the arrival. Terminal. A tired engineer, two elderly traders, a family carrying everything they owned. Then came the final passenger. She was just a little human girl, no older than 12. Her dark gray jumpsuit was faded from years of hard work. Dust from mining. Tunnels still stained the fabric around her boots. A small duffel bag hung from one hand, looking almost heavier than she was. She walked quietly. No guards escorted her. No relatives greeted her. No one even seemed to notice. Officer Varric barely glanced at the arrival list. Lena Carter, he muttered. Human. Transfer approved. He prepared to close the manifest. Then the floor began to vibrate. At first, everyone assumed another transport had docked nearby. Then came the sound. Heavy footsteps, slow, deliberate, metal, echoed beneath enormous weight. Every head turned toward the gate. 4 massive creatures emerged from the shadows behind the girl. The terminal froze. Each beast stood, nearly as tall as an armored soldier at the shoulder. Dark gray fur-covered bodies built entirely for survival. Long scars crossed powerful muscles. Golden eyes scanned every corner of the station with impossible intelligence. Their ears never stopped, moving. Their claws clicked softly against the steel floor. Rows of white teeth remained hidden behind closed jaws, making them somehow even more frightening. Officer Varric felt every instinct screaming inside him. Nightfang death wolves. Impossible. One would have triggered a military emergency. There were 4. Every security alarm erupted at once. Red warning lights flooded the terminal. Code Black! Deathworld predators detected. Passengers screamed. Some dropped their luggage, others ran without looking back. Within seconds, blast doors sealed every exit. Armed security teams rushed into formation, rifles raised. The wolves ignored all of them. Instead, they calmly continued walking, not toward the soldiers, toward the little girl. One walked slightly ahead of her, 2 remained beside her. The largest stayed behind, watching everyone else, like bodyguards protecting someone important. Commander Talos entered the terminal with heavily armed response troops. His blue skin had turned pale. He had spent 40 years fighting pirates, raiders, and Deathworld mercenaries. Nothing had prepared him for this. He recognized the predators immediately. Entire military expeditions had vanished trying to study creatures like these. Official records described them with one warning: avoid contact, at all costs. Yet here they were, walking peacefully beside a child. Talos slowly raised one hand. No one fires. His officers stared at him. Commander, they're inside the civilian terminal. I said, no one fires. The wolves finally stopped. All 4 sat down together, perfectly calm. The little girl looked back at them with gentle confusion. You don't have to wait, she said softly. One wolf blinked. None moved. The station became completely silent. Even the alarm seemed distant now. Talos stepped forward carefully. What is your name? The girl looked at him. Lena. Those creatures. He pointed slowly. Do they belong to you? She frowned as if the question itself sounded strange. I don't think anyone owns them. Talos exchanged nervous looks with his officers. Then why are they following you? Lena looked toward the wolves. They've always followed me. As if that explained everything, it explained nothing. Within minutes, the entire station entered emergency lockdown. Lena was escorted to a secure observation room overlooking the medical research wing. No chains were placed on her, no restraints. She had done absolutely nothing wrong. The wolves simply followed. Whenever security tried closing a blast door between them, the predators stopped walking. Not aggressively, not fearfully, just waiting. Patiently. Eventually, every officer realized the same thing. Keeping them together was safer than forcing them apart. Behind reinforced observation glass, scientists hurried from one workstation to another. Dr. Sellis, the station's senior xenobiologist, stared silently at the incoming scan results. This can't be correct. Another researcher leaned closer. What is it? She enlarged the biological profile. They're mature, night fangs. Silence filled the laboratory. Every scientist knew what that meant. Night fang deathwolves came from Karos 9, a death world where gravity crushed bones twice as fast as most civilized planets, where storms carried rocks like bullets, where almost every living thing hunted something else. Nothing survived Karos 9 without becoming extraordinarily dangerous. Military records estimated that a single adult night fang could eliminate an armored combat squad. Yet 4 sat quietly outside the laboratory doors. 1 rested its enormous head on its front paws. Another watched Lena with calm, steady eyes. Dr. Sellis shook her head. No chemical restraint. No neural implants. No control collars. No signs of domestication. A younger scientist whispered, "Then why are they behaving like trained companions?" "No," Sellis answered immediately. "They aren't behaving like pets." She zoomed further into the emotional scans. The room became even quieter. "They're behaving like—" She hesitated. "Family." Meanwhile, Lena sat on a simple bench eating a small nutrition bar provided by station staff. She broke it into pieces. Without thinking, she offered one piece toward the nearest wolf. The creature gently accepted it from her fingertips. No snapping, no growling, no possessiveness, just complete trust. Around the observation window, experienced soldiers watched in stunned silence. One finally spoke. "I've seen those things tear armored vehicles apart." Another nodded slowly. "And she's feeding one, like it's an old farm dog." Commander Talos remained expressionless, but inside his mind raced. Nothing about this situation made sense. Lena's official file had already been downloaded. Born on Earth. Moved to Frontier Colony 12 after her parents accepted mining contracts. Mother, deceased. Father deceased. No criminal record. No military connections. No classified training. Average education. Average health. Average psychological evaluation. She should have been the most ordinary person on the station. Instead, 4 of the galaxy's most feared predators refused to leave her side. Talos walked into the observation room. "Lena," she looked up. "Can I ask you something?" She nodded. "Where did you meet them?" She smiled faintly. "Near our mining camp. They were little. They kept stealing food." One of Talos's officers almost laughed. "Little? Night fangs?" Lena continued. "They were hungry. So Dad said, if something's hungry," she remembered his words perfectly, "you feed it before you judge it." The room fell silent again. She looked toward the wolves. They never left after that. Dr. Sellis suddenly rushed into the room holding a glowing data tablet. "Commander, you need to see this." The emotional synchronization scans had finished processing. 4 separate biological signatures appeared beside Lena's. Every heartbeat, every stress response, every hormonal shift, perfectly synchronized. Talos frowned. "What does this mean?" Sellis answered quietly. "It means they aren't protecting her because they've been trained. They're protecting her because they've bonded." Talos had heard of bonded animals before. Small domestic creatures, companion species. Nothing remotely close to Deathworld apex predators. "This has never happened?" Sellis slowly shook her head. "Not once." Before Talos could ask another question, every light inside the laboratory suddenly flickered. Once. Twice. Then darkness swallowed the entire room. Only the red emergency lights remained. An alarm unlike any heard before echoed through Orion Frontier Station far outside the station, hidden beyond sensor range only moments earlier. Unknown warships had arrived. The emergency lights bathed every corridor in a deep crimson glow. Throughout Orion Frontier Station, confused civilians stopped where they stood. Shops closed their security shutters. Cargo drones froze in place as the central network failed. Elevators locked between decks, leaving hundreds trapped inside steel shafts. Then came the second alarm. A voice echoed through every speaker. Warning. Unknown fleet detected. Defensive systems offline. All personnel report to emergency shelters. Immediately, Commander Talos looked toward the observation window overlooking the docking bays. The stars had disappeared. Massive black warships slowly emerged from the darkness like predators surfacing from deep water. They carried no government insignias, no diplomatic codes, only scarred armor covered in battle damage. Pirates, but not ordinary pirates. These ships belonged to the Crimson Fang Syndicate across the galaxy. They were whispered about rather than discussed openly. They hunted things no sane person would chase. Deathworld monsters, ancient alien relics, living weapons, and today, they had come for the Night Fangs. Deep inside the lead warship, a scarred alien with one cybernetic eye watched the station through a holographic display. Captain Vargos smiled. There they are. 4 glowing biological signatures appeared beside a single human. His first officer frowned. The reports were true. They really follow the child. Vargos folded his arms. Interesting. I expected collars. I expected drugs. I didn't expect loyalty. He slowly leaned closer to the display. That makes the girl far more valuable. Back inside Orion Station, panic spread faster than fire. Families rushed toward evacuation shelters. Medical staff carried injured workers through crowded corridors. Station security attempted to organize defensive positions, but nothing worked. The central defense network had been hacked. Turrets refused to respond. Drone patrols shut down. Blast doors opened and closed without commands. Someone had disabled the station before arriving. The pirates had planned this for weeks. Commander Talos immediately issued new orders. Manual defense positions. No automated systems. Protect the civilians first. Every officer acknowledged the command. They knew exactly how serious the situation had become. In the research wing, Lena quietly stood from the bench. One by one, the wolves also stood. Nobody had spoken. Nobody had given a command. Yet every predator instantly became alert. Their ears lifted. Their noses tested the air. The largest wolf slowly walked to the reinforced observation window overlooking the docking ring. Its muscles tightened. A low growl vibrated through the room. Not loud, but deep, enough to make every scientist step backward. Lena placed one hand gently against its shoulder. It's okay. The growl stopped. Commander Talos noticed something remarkable. The wolf had not obeyed an order. It had trusted reassurance. There was a difference. A very important difference. Explosions suddenly rocked the station. The entire building shook violently. Ceiling, lights burst, glass cracked. Somewhere below them, Docking Bay 12 erupted into flames. Smoke poured through ventilation shafts. The pirates had boarded. Reports flooded Talos's communicator. Deck 4 breached. Security Team Delta eliminated. Hostiles. Entering engineering. We need reinforcements. Every message sounded worse than the last. Talos looked toward Lena, then toward the wolves. He hated the thought forming inside his own mind. He was considering trusting them. The first pirates appeared only minutes later. 6 armored raiders advanced. Through the research corridor with plasma rifles raised, heavy boots echoed against the steel floor. Their leader laughed after spotting the laboratory. There she is. One scientist screamed. Security officers opened fire. Blue plasma bolts filled the hallway. The pirates answered immediately. Walls exploded. Warning lights shattered. Metal doors buckled beneath repeated impacts. The defenders slowly lost ground. Then, one wolf stepped forward. The movement was almost silent. The pirates barely noticed. Until it disappeared. For one impossible second, the predator simply vanished. Then chaos exploded. The wolf crossed nearly 20 meters faster than the eye could follow. A pirate flew backward into the corridor wall with enough force to bend solid steel. Before the others could react, a second wolf struck from the side. Another rifle clattered across the floor. The remaining night fangs moved together with terrifying precision. No barking, no wild rage. Every movement calculated, every attack controlled. Within seconds, the corridor fell silent. Not one pirate remained standing. The wolves had not killed them. They had simply removed the threat. Commander Talos stared in disbelief. "I've read every combat report," he whispered. "They're holding back." Dr. Celis looked equally stunned. "They know exactly how much force to use." Lena quietly walked toward the largest wolf. "You promised." The animal lowered its head. "We only hurt people if there's no other choice." The wolf gently touched her hand with its nose. Talos realized something impossible. The predators hadn't become less dangerous. They had become disciplined. Across the station, Captain Vargos watched the security recordings arrive in real time. He replayed the footage twice, then a third time. The wolves weren't acting like wild animals. They were protecting someone. His smile slowly disappeared. "Change of plans." His officers looked up. "The wolves aren't our prize anymore." He enlarged Lena's image. "The girl is. If she can command night fangs," he smiled again. "Imagine what else she could tame." Commander Talos immediately understood. "The danger! They're coming for Lena." Every officer in the room looked toward the frightened child. For the first time since arriving on the station, Lena looked uncertain, not for herself, for the wolves. "They'll keep coming," she whispered. "They always do." Talos knelt beside her. "What do you mean?" She looked toward the burning docking ring outside. There were hunters on the colony too. They tried taking the pups. They never stopped searching. Talos felt cold. This wasn't an accidental attack. It had started years ago. The pirates had been tracking the night fangs ever since they were young, and now they had finally found them. The station lights flickered once again. This time, every monitor switched to a single image. Captain Vargos appeared on every screen aboard Orion Station. His mechanical eye glowed crimson. His voice echoed through every corridor. "Attention. I have no interest in your station. I have no interest in your civilians. I want only one thing." He pointed directly toward the camera. "The human girl. Surrender her peacefully, and everyone else lives." Silence filled the laboratory. Every pair of eyes slowly turned toward Lena. She stood quietly between the four wolves. None of them moved, but every one of them stared at the screen. Their amber eyes reflected the pirate captain's face. Then, together, the entire pack growled, and somewhere, far beyond the walls of Orion Station, a distant howl answered. Another followed, then another, then dozens more echoed across the darkness of space. Commander Talos slowly looked toward the enormous observation window. His heartbeat stopped. Movement. Something enormous was approaching the station. Commander Talos stared through the massive observation window. Beyond the station's armored hull, countless moving shadows drifted through the darkness. At first, they looked like drifting debris. Then one entered the light of Orion Station. A night fang. Another appeared. Then another. Within seconds, dozens of glowing amber eyes surrounded the station. No engines, no ships. The predators were riding enormous chunks of asteroid rock, leaping from one fragment to another with terrifying precision. The entire command center fell silent. Dr. Celis slowly removed her glasses. "Impossible." She whispered the word without realizing it. Night fangs had never been observed leaving Karos 9. The scientific community believed they couldn't survive space. Everything they knew was wrong. Commander Talos felt his communicator vibrate. Every external sensor reported the same thing. More life signatures. Hundreds of them. The station wasn't under attack by a pirate fleet anymore. It was surrounded by an entire Night Fang pack. Inside the pirate flagship, Captain Vargos smiled. So the stories were true. His tactical officer looked nervous. Captain, that's far more than our intelligence predicted. I know. Vargos leaned back in his command chair, which means the girl is even more valuable. He pressed a command into the console. Prepare containment weapons. No lethal fire. I want every Night Fang alive. Back inside Orion Station, emergency teams hurried civilians toward reinforced shelters. Children cried. Parents tried to remain calm. Smoke continued filling several corridors after the earlier explosions. Security teams established barricades across the research wing. Commander Talos walked beside Lena as they entered a protected maintenance corridor beneath the laboratory. The four wolves remained close. Not once had they left her side. Talos finally asked the question that had been haunting him since her arrival. Lena, she looked up. Did you train them? She blinked. No. Did your father? She slowly shook her head. No. Then why did they follow you? For several seconds she simply thought about the answer. Finally she smiled sadly. They were scared. Talos frowned. When we first found them, they were hiding inside an old mining tunnel. Their mother never came back. They cried every night. The commander exchanged a glance with Dr. Silas. Lena continued walking. Dad said hungry animals don't need punishment. They need kindness. So, we kept feeding them. The corridor became silent. She looked down at the floor. When winter storms came, they slept beside our house. When they got hurt, Mom cleaned their wounds. When I was lonely, they stayed with me. She looked toward the largest wolf. We grew up together. Dr. Silas stopped walking. Something inside her mind suddenly connected. She hurried toward a nearby terminal connected to the station archive. I need access to the xenological database. Within seconds, thousands of ancient research files filled the screen. She searched one forgotten report after another. Then, she froze. Commander, you need to see this. The report was nearly 400 years old. Most scientists had dismissed it as impossible. It described an extinct predator species discovered on an abandoned alien world. Unlike most apex predators, they had evolved a unique survival instinct. They didn't follow the strongest leader. They followed the individual who consistently protected the group without demanding dominance. Trust, not fear. Cooperation, not control. Dr. Silas looked back toward Lena. The Night Fangs evolved on a Deathworld. Everything there survives through cooperation. Commander Talos crossed his arms. I don't understand. She enlarged another section of the report. Most civilizations use dominance, hierarchy, control, but humans, she looked directly at Lena, form emotional bonds. Talos slowly remembered countless reports about Earth. Humans adopted wolves, horses, birds, massive ocean predators, even dangerous reptiles. Species no other civilization had successfully domesticated. The galaxy had always assumed humans controlled animals through superior intelligence. Now they realized something entirely different. Humans didn't begin with control. They began with trust. Without warning, the station shook violently. A massive explosion echoed above them. Dust poured from the ceiling. One security officer rushed into the corridor. They breached Deck 9. They're moving toward engineering. Commander Talos immediately activated the station map. The pirate assault teams weren't spreading randomly anymore. Every squad was converging on one location. Lena, Captain Vargos, had stopped attacking the station. Now he was hunting only her. Several decks above, pirate soldiers forced open another blast door. Heavy containment drones rolled beside them, carrying glowing energy cages. Specialized tranquilizer launchers replaced plasma rifles. Their orders had changed. Capture, not kill. Vargos walked, Calmly behind them, he studied the station layout. She's running, his officer nodded, but not toward escape pods. Exactly, Vargo smiled. She's protecting everyone else. He admired that. Compassion created predictable decisions. Predictable decisions created traps. Meanwhile, Lena followed Commander Talos deeper into the maintenance tunnels. The air smelled of warm machinery and old coolant pipes. The wolves suddenly stopped. Every one of them lifted its head toward the ceiling. Their ears twitched. The largest wolf growled quietly, not in anger, as a warning. Lena immediately understood. They're close. Talos motioned for everyone to remain silent. Then, footsteps. Heavy armored boots echoed through the narrow passage ahead. Pirates, dozens of them. The escape route had already been blocked. Talos slowly raised his rifle. His officers prepared grenades. The scientists backed against the wall. Lena looked toward the wolves. She never spoke. She never pointed. She simply nodded once. The four night fangs disappeared into the darkness without making a sound. Seconds later, the maintenance tunnels erupted with screams. Metal crashed. Weapons clattered across the floor. Then, silence. Complete silence. When the wolves returned, none of them carried a single scratch. Commander Talos stared at them with growing respect. They could have killed every one of them, Lena quietly answered. They don't kill unless they have to. At that exact moment, every emergency light aboard Orion Station suddenly changed from red to flashing white. Dr. Salis looked toward the ceiling. Her face lost all color. Commander, those aren't security alerts. Talos checked his wrist display. His heart skipped a beat. External scanners had detected something entering the station through dozens of damaged cargo bays. Not pirates. Not soldiers. Hundreds. No, thousands. Of biological signatures, the Nightfang pack had found a way inside Orion Station. The entire station trembled. Not from explosions, not from pirate weapons, from footsteps. Deep beneath Orion Station, reinforced cargo bay doors began to buckle outward. Hydraulic locks screamed under impossible pressure. Warning sirens echoed through every deck as security cameras flickered from one corridor to another. Commander Talos stared at the tactical display. One biological signature became 10. 10 became 50. 50 became hundreds. Then the system stopped counting. The station's artificial intelligence flashed a warning across every monitor. Lifeform count exceeds database capacity. Silence filled the command channel. No one had ever imagined so many Deathworld predators existing in one place. Dr. Salis whispered in disbelief. They didn't come to invade. They came because she was in danger. Far above them, Captain Vargos watched the same readings aboard his flagship. For the first time in years, confidence faded from his face. His tactical officer swallowed hard. Captain, our containment teams are reporting movement across every deck. Vargos remained calm. How many? The officer hesitated. Too many. Another transmission arrived. Containment Team 3 has gone silent. Seconds later. Containment. Team 5 is requesting emergency extraction. Then, Cargo Bay 7 lost. Every report ended the same way. No bodies, no survivors, only silence. Vargos slowly stood. They're coordinating. His officers looked at him. They're not behaving like animals. They're fighting like soldiers. Inside the station, terrified civilians huddled inside emergency shelters. A little alien child clung to her mother's arm as heavy footsteps echoed outside the blast door. Everyone held their breath. The security lights dimmed. A giant shadow crossed the small observation window. A Nightfang. Its glowing amber eyes looked inside. For one long moment, no one moved. Then the creature quietly continued down the corridor. It never touched the shelter. The mother stared after it. It ignored us. The station security officer slowly lowered his rifle. They're only hunting the pirates. Commander Talos watched dozens of live security feeds. Every camera showed the same impossible scene. Night Fangs sprinted through burning corridors with breathtaking speed. Whenever they encountered frightened civilians, they simply ran past. Whenever they found injured station workers, they stopped. Several wolves gently nudged trapped survivors away from collapsing debris before continuing the hunt. Dr. Celis couldn't believe her own eyes. They understand. They know who the enemy is. Lena smiled softly. I told you. They're family. The four wolves beside Lena suddenly became alert. The largest raised its head. Its ears turned toward the ceiling. Another howl echoed through the ventilation shafts. This one came from inside the station. The answer came immediately, then another, and another. Within seconds, hundreds of voices answered one another across Orion Station. It wasn't random, it was communication. The entire pack was. Coordinating its movements, Commander Talos finally understood. This isn't chaos. It's strategy. Captain Vargos refused to retreat. He had spent 20 years building the Crimson Fang Syndicate. He would not lose everything to a child. Deploy the Titan units. Every bridge officer looked toward him. Captain, they're experimental, I know. They were built for Deathworld hunting. Heavy blast doors opened deep inside the flagship. 4 massive combat machines marched toward the docking tubes. Each stood nearly 4 meters tall, powered by military-grade exoskeletons, covered in reinforced alloy, armed with shock cannons, magnetic nets, and sonic disruptors designed specifically to incapacitate giant predators. Vargos smiled again. Let's see how loyal they remain. Minutes later, the Titans crashed through Orion Station's outer docking ring. Steel walls exploded inward. The giant machines advanced without hesitation. One Night Fang lunged first. A sonic pulse struck the predator in midair. The wolf crashed against the wall, stunned but alive. The second Titan launched an electrified containment net. Another wolf became trapped. Commander Talos watched the battle through security cameras. They prepared for this. Dr. Celis nodded. They've hunted Night Fangs before. Lena stepped forward. No. Talos grabbed her shoulder. It's too dangerous. She gently moved his hand away. They're scared. Talos looked at her in disbelief. Scared? She nodded. The machines hurt them before. The largest wolf looked toward her. Its breathing had become heavier. Its eyes never left the trapped members of the pack. Lena slowly walked into the center of the corridor. The Titans immediately locked onto her. Weapons charged. Red targeting beams covered her body. Security officers shouted, "Get back!" Commander Talos raised his rifle. But Lena never stopped walking. The station seemed to hold its breath. She reached the trapped Night Fang first. Without fear, without hesitation, she placed one hand on the crackling energy net. It's okay. The wolf stopped struggling instantly. Then something unbelievable happened. Every Night Fang aboard Orion Station became perfectly still. Hundreds of predators froze at the exact same moment. Even Captain Vargos watched in stunned silence. Through the battlefield cameras. What are they doing? No one answered. Lena looked directly at the Titans. Then she spoke quietly. You don't have to fight anymore. The words weren't meant for the machines. They were meant for the wolves. The largest Night Fang slowly stepped forward. Instead of attacking, it stood beside her. Then another. Then another. Within seconds, hundreds of Deathworld predators emerged from every corridor, surrounding Lena in complete silence. Not growling, not charging, simply standing, an unbreakable wall of living guardians. The Titans suddenly looked very small. Captain Vargos felt something he had not experienced in decades. Fear. Real fear. His officers backed away from the tactical display. One whispered, "Captain, we've lost." Vargos slammed his fist against the console. No. He activated one final encrypted command. If I can't take the girl, no one will. Deep inside Orion Station, Hidden demolition charges planted weeks earlier suddenly activated. Red warning lights returned. A cold computerized voice echoed throughout every deck. Critical reactor failure detected. Self-destruct sequence initiated. Core overload in 5 minutes. Commander Talos stared at the countdown timer. 5 minutes. Even if the pirates surrendered, even if every battle stopped, the station would still explode. Millions of lives were now at risk. Everyone slowly turned toward Lena. She looked at the EU. Frightened civilians. Then at the night fangs surrounding her. The largest wolf met her eyes, as if waiting. Not for an order. For a decision. Lena took one slow breath. Then she whispered, "We save everyone." The 4 wolves immediately lifted their heads toward the ceiling. Their unified howl shook the entire station, and from every deck, hundreds of night fangs answered. The greatest rescue operation in Orion Station's history had just begun. The countdown echoed through every corridor. Reactor overload in 4 minutes, 58 seconds. The cold mechanical voice repeated without emotion. Panic spread faster than the fire. Across Orion Frontier Station, millions of emergency lights flashed white and red. Smoke filled the upper decks. Gravity flickered as damaged power systems struggled to stay online. Families rushed toward evacuation shelters while engineers desperately searched for a way to stop the reactor from collapsing. Commander Talos looked at the countdown, then at Lena, then at the hundreds of night fangs surrounding her. For the first time in his military career, he placed his faith in someone with no rank. Lena. What do we do? The young girl looked around at the frightened faces. Scientists, soldiers, children, workers, aliens from worlds she had never even heard of. They were all looking at her, not because she was powerful, because she stayed calm. She slowly knelt beside the largest night fang and gently placed her hand against its scarred neck. We save everyone. The wolf closed its eyes for a brief moment. Then it released one long, powerful howl. The sound rolled through every deck like thunder. A second later, hundreds of night fangs answered. The station came alive, instead of attacking. The pack split into groups. Some raced toward engineering, others sprinted into burning residential sectors. Several disappeared into damaged ventilation systems that rescue drones could never enter. Commander Talos watched the security feeds in disbelief. Each group moved with perfect coordination. One night fang used its massive strength to lift collapsed support beams, allowing trapped civilians to crawl free. Another pack located injured maintenance workers buried beneath shattered pipes. A pair of wolves formed a protective wall around frightened children while explosions rocked the corridor around them. Not a single civilian was harmed. The predators ignored everyone except those carrying pirate weapons. Dr. Celis felt tears forming in her eyes. For centuries, we called them monsters. She watched one giant wolf gently carry an unconscious alien, medic by the back of his protective suit without leaving a single scratch. We never even tried to understand them. Meanwhile, deep beneath the station, Captain Vargos reached the primary reactor chamber. His surviving soldiers dragged heavy equipment behind them. He smiled as he watched the reactor become increasingly unstable. Blue energy arced across the enormous containment rings. The overload could no longer be stopped from the control room. Only a manual shutdown inside the reactor core could prevent destruction, and someone would have to remain behind long enough to complete it. No one survives that. Vargos laughed quietly. If I lose my prize, so does the galaxy. Commander Talos received the reactor report. His face became grim. The manual controls. They're inside the core. One engineer nodded. The radiation will kill anyone before they finish the sequence. Silence filled the command center. Everyone understood. Stopping the explosion meant sacrificing a life. Lena quietly stepped forward. I'll go. Talos immediately shook his head. No, you've already saved enough people. Before anyone could continue. The largest night fang stood between Lena and the reactor corridor. Its golden eyes met hers. It slowly lowered its head, then turned toward the reactor, as if making its own choice. Lena understood instantly. No, she whispered. You can't. The wolf gently touched her hand with its nose, the same way it had done since it was a frightened pup outside a tiny mining house. Commander Talos finally understood. The wolf wasn't following a command, it was protecting family. Suddenly, a loud explosion shook the corridor. Captain Vargos emerged with the last of his elite soldiers. His armor was damaged, one mechanical arm sparked with electricity, but his weapon remained aimed directly at Lena. So, he smiled coldly. The famous human. The Night Fangs immediately surrounded her. Vargos laughed. You still think kindness makes you strong? He activated a compact gravity weapon. A violent shockwave blasted through the corridor. Several wolves were thrown backward. Soldiers struggled to remain standing. Only Lena stayed on her feet. Vargos raised his rifle. You had one chance. You should have stayed on your little colony. Before he could pull the trigger, Commander Talos stepped into the line of fire. No, Vargos frowned. You'd die for her? Talos smiled. I finally understand humanity. They protect strangers. They trust when everyone else chooses fear. And today, so do I. The pirate captain fired. A blur of gray crossed the corridor. The largest Night Fang intercepted the shot. The energy blast struck its armored shoulder. It stumbled, but it never fell. Instead, it roared. Not with rage, with absolute determination. Every Night Fang aboard the station answered. The sound shook the reactor chamber itself. Captain Vargos hesitated for the first time. That single moment was enough. Commander Talos fired. His plasma bolt destroyed the pirate captain's gravity weapon. Station security rushed forward. The remaining pirates threw down their weapons. Years of terror ended in seconds. Not because they were defeated, because they realized they could never defeat a bond stronger than fear. Captain Vargos was arrested alive. His empire ended on the floor of Orion Station. The countdown continued. 1 minute remaining. Engineers desperately searched for another solution. None existed. The reactor had to be shut down manually. The largest Night Fang slowly walked toward the glowing reactor corridor once more. Lena grabbed its thick fur. Tears filled her eyes. I don't want to lose you. The wolf gently rested its forehead against hers. Then something extraordinary happened. Every wolf in the chamber stepped closer. Commander Talos stared at the reactor schematics. An idea suddenly struck him. The cooling tunnels. The chief engineer looked up. They're too narrow. Talos smiled. For us. Everyone looked toward the pack. Night Fangs could reach the emergency release valves hidden throughout the reactor's cooling network. Not one, all of them. Lena immediately understood. They can release the pressure together. The engineers rapidly recalculated. It will work, but every valve has to open at exactly the same second. Lena looked around at the hundreds of amber eyes watching her. She smiled through her tears. I trust you. No orders, no commands, only trust. The wolves disappeared into the reactor tunnels. The countdown reached. 10, 9, 8. The station became silent. 7, 6. Commander Talos closed his eyes. 5, 4. Far inside the reactor, hundreds of powerful paws reached hundreds of emergency valves. 3, 2, Lena whispered. Now. A single howl echoed through the tunnels. Every valve opened together. The reactor released a deafening wave of blue energy. The containment rings stabilized. The countdown disappeared. Silence. Then, every light aboard Orion Frontier Station returned. Cheers erupted across every deck. Families embraced. Engineers collapsed in relief. Soldiers laughed for the first time in hours. The station had survived. Weeks later, the entire galaxy watched the official investigation. Scientists admitted centuries of misunderstanding. Night Fangs were never mindless killers. They were intelligent social predators capable of extraordinary loyalty. Humanity had never conquered them. Humanity had simply offered something no other civilization ever had: trust without fear, respect without domination, because of one small human girl. The laws governing every Deathworld species were rewritten. Commander Talos received the galaxy's highest military honor. Dr. Celis published the most important xenobiology paper in modern history. Captain Vargos was sentenced to spend the rest of his life in a maximum security prison. When Lena was offered wealth, military rank, and a place among the Galactic Council, she politely refused. "I just want a home." The council asked where she wanted it. Lena smiled. "Somewhere my family can run." Months later, travelers arriving at Orion Frontier Station saw a sight that had become legendary. A young human girl walked peacefully through the central promenade. 4 enormous night fangs followed beside her. No alarm sounded. No soldiers raised weapons. Veterans saluted. Children waved excitedly. Even hardened officers smiled with respect. Across the stars, people no longer whispered her name in fear. They spoke it with hope. Because one ordinary human girl had reminded the galaxy of a forgotten truth. The strongest force in the universe was never fear. It was trust. Far beyond explored space. On a planet hidden behind a permanent nebula, an ancient orbital beacon suddenly activated after remaining silent for thousands of years. Unknown symbols illuminated its surface. A deep mechanical voice echoed into the darkness. Genetic signature confirmed. Human guardian detected. Awaken the world packs. Across the frozen valleys below, thousands of pairs of glowing amber eyes slowly opened. One after another, then another, waiting, as if they had been expecting humanity to return, to be continued.